Dog wouldn't stop barking at an abandoned dumpster. What was inside shocked everyone. Dorothy woke up to Buddy's persistent barking echoing through the empty street. The caramel-colored mutt she fed every morning was unusually frantic, running in circles around the old green dumpster parked at the corner of Maple Street in San Diego. "Buddy, quiet!" she shouted from the window, but the dog kept barking desperately, scratching the side of the dumpster with his paws. Dorothy hurried down the stairs of her small apartment building, still in her slippers and robe. It was 6 in the morning, and the street was empty, except for a few sanitation workers starting their shift further down. As she got closer, she noticed the dumpster lid was slightly open. Buddy jumped, trying to reach the gap, whining between barks. That's when Dorothy saw it, a pale hand hanging out of the dumpster, motionless among the trash bags. "Oh my God!" She rushed to the dumpster, her heart pounding. "Is someone in there? Please answer." A weak moan came from inside. Dorothy tried lifting the heavy lid further, but her 65-year-old strength wasn't enough. Buddy kept barking, now more distressed, as if begging for help. "Help, someone help!" Dorothy cried, desperately looking at the surrounding houses. Windows began opening, curious neighbors peering out to see what was happening. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just starting. Now, back to the story. Frank, the baker from the corner, was the first to arrive. A strong man in his 50s, he managed to lift the lid completely. What they saw left everyone frozen. A young woman, no older than 20, curled up in the trash, her face swollen from crying, her clothes torn and dirty. "Easy, easy, it's over now." Dorothy reached out to the girl, who was trembling uncontrollably. "Let's get you out of there." The girl tried to speak, but only sobs came out. Frank carefully picked her up in his arms, pulling her from that awful place. Buddy stopped barking, cautiously approaching, sniffing the girl as if checking if she was okay. "Call an ambulance!" someone shouted from the growing crowd. "No!" The girl finally found her voice, gripping Dorothy's arm tightly. "Please, no. He'll find me." Dorothy exchanged a worried glance with Frank. Who was he? What had happened to this poor girl? Acting on maternal instinct, Dorothy made a decision. "Come with me, sweetheart. Let's go to my place. You need a bath and clean clothes." The girl hesitated, her wide eyes darting fearfully across the curious faces around her. Buddy moved closer, gently licking her hand as if saying everything would be all right now. That seemed to convince her. In Dorothy's small apartment, the girl took a long shower while her host prepared coffee and buttered toast. Buddy stood guard outside the bathroom door, lying down like a silent protector. "My name is Ashley," the girl finally said, now dressed in Dorothy's borrowed clothes, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee. I ran away from home." Dorothy didn't push. Years of experience as a retired teacher had taught her patience. Ashley would eat, rest, and when she was ready, she'd tell her story. But the peace didn't last long. Loud banging on the door made Ashley drop her mug, coffee spilling across the table. Buddy started growling, his fur bristling. "Dorothy, open this door. I know my daughter's in there," a commanding male voice shouted from outside. Ashley turned white as a sheet. Her hands shook so badly Dorothy had to hold them. "That's my father," the girl whispered. "Please, don't let him take me." Dorothy stood up, determined. Something in the girl's terror made her reach a decision. "Stay in the room. Buddy, go with her," she ordered. The dog obeyed immediately, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. The woman walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it just a crack, keeping the safety chain on. "Yes? Can I help you?" A tall, well-dressed man with an unfriendly demeanor stared at Dorothy. His eyes were cold, calculating. "You're hiding my daughter. Hand her over now, or I'll call the police." "I don't know what you're talking about." Dorothy kept her voice steady. "And if you keep shouting, I'll be the one calling the police." "You stupid old woman! I heard people say you brought a girl here. Ashley, I know you're there. Stop this nonsense and come home now." From the bedroom, Ashley hugged Buddy, silent tears streaming down her face. The dog licked her tears, offering what comfort he could. You're disturbing the peace. I'm asking you to leave." Dorothy tried to close the door, but the man stuck his foot in the way. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm Richard Mitchell, owner of Mitchell Construction. I have connections all over this city. I'll make your life hell if you don't give me back my daughter." "Are you threatening me?" Dorothy lifted her chin defiantly. "Well, I have connections too. 40 years of teaching built a lot of ties. Now take your foot off my door before I scream for help." Voices began to rise in the hallway. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, stepped out of their apartments. Richard realized he was drawing too much attention. He stepped back, but his eyes promised this wasn't over. "This isn't the end, old woman. You can count on that." He pointed at Dorothy before storming off, his heavy footsteps echoing down the hall. Dorothy closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. What had she gotten herself into? She went to the bedroom and found Ashley curled up on the bed, Buddy lying protectively beside her. "He's gone, sweetheart. But I need to understand what's happening. Why did you run away? What did he do to you?" Ashley took several deep breaths before she could speak. The story she told made Dorothy's heart ache. Richard Mitchell had been a widower for 3 years. Since his wife's death, he'd become obsessed with controlling every aspect of Ashley's life. He wouldn't let her go out, have friends, or study. He wanted her to take care of the house and him, as if she were a replacement for her mother. "He said it was for my own good, that the world was too dangerous," Ashley sobbed. "But I felt like I was in prison. When I tried to argue that I wanted to go to college, he locked me in my room for 3 days." "Oh, dear God." Dorothy hugged the girl. "How did you escape?" "Yesterday he left for a business meeting. The maid took pity on me and forgot to lock the door. I ran with just the clothes on my back. When I heard his car searching the streets, I hid in the first dumpster I saw. I spent the whole night there, too scared to come out." Buddy lifted his head and licked Ashley's face as if to say she was safe now. Dorothy made a decision. "You'll stay here as long as you need. We'll figure out a plan." But Richard Mitchell wasn't a man to give up easily. The next day, Dorothy received a summons. The businessman was suing her for kidnapping and unlawful confinement. The retired teacher was shocked. How could someone twist the truth so badly? "Don't worry," said Dr. Matthew, a former student of Dorothy's who was now a lawyer. "Ashley is an adult, and she's here of her own free will. This won't go anywhere, but he'll try to make your life difficult." And he did. Richard began a smear campaign against Dorothy in the neighborhood. He spread rumors that she was an unstable old woman who lured young people. Some neighbors, swayed by the businessman's power and money, started looking at Dorothy with suspicion. Ashley felt guiltier by the day. "I should leave. I don't want to cause you any trouble." "Don't even think about it," Dorothy said firmly. "Do you really think I'd abandon you now? Buddy and I are your family now." The dog barked in agreement, making Ashley smile for the first time in days, but the pressure kept mounting. Dorothy started receiving anonymous calls in the middle of the night. Her car was keyed. Graffiti appeared on her apartment door. Ashley saw it all and her heart ached. One night while Dorothy slept, Ashley wrote a goodbye note. She couldn't bear seeing this kind woman suffer because of her anymore. She opened the door quietly, but Buddy was awake, watching. The dog began to whimper softly as if begging her not to go. "Shh, Buddy. I have to do this. Take care of her for me," Ashley whispered, tears streaming down her face. But when she tried to leave, Buddy stood in front of the door, growling low. He wasn't aggressive, just determined. The noise woke Dorothy. "What's going on here? Ashley, what do you think you're doing?" "I can't do this anymore, Dorothy. Look what he's doing to your life. I'll go back home and end this. You go back and he'll make things worse. Do you really think after all this scandal he'll treat you better?" Dorothy held the girl's shoulders. "Listen, tomorrow we'll talk to Dr. Jennifer. She's a psychologist and also my former student. We'll find a legal solution for this." The next day, during the session with the psychologist, more revelations came to light. Dr. Jennifer identified clear signs of psychological abuse and suggested protective measures. "But he's my father." Ashley hesitated. "That doesn't give him the right to control you," the psychologist said gently but firmly. "You have the right to your own life." With Dr. Matthew's help, they filed for a restraining order. The judge, Dr. Catherine, another former student of Dorothy's, reviewed the case carefully. The evidence of Richard Mitchell's controlling behavior was undeniable. But the businessman refused to accept the court's decision. He hired the best lawyers, arguing he was only protecting his mentally unstable daughter. He even presented a forged psychiatric report. "This is a lie," Ashley cried, clutching Dorothy's hand in court. "I've never seen that, doctor." Buddy wasn't allowed inside the courtroom, but he waited outside, restless, as if he could feel Ashley's anguish from a distance. The legal battle dragged on for weeks. Dorothy spent her savings on lawyers to help Ashley. The girl got a job at a local bakery, determined to gain her independence, but Richard showed up every day to harass her. "You're coming home, Ashley, no matter what it takes," he said, standing at the bakery's door. George, the bakery's 70-year-old owner, wasn't intimidated. "You're disturbing my business. I'll call the police." "Go ahead. They can't do anything. I'm just talking to my daughter." Ashley trembled every time she saw him. Her co-workers formed a protective barrier around her, but the fear lingered. At night, she had nightmares. Buddy slept beside her bed, waking her with gentle licks when she cried out in her sleep. Dorothy watched the girl wither under the strain. The constant pressure was taking its toll. She decided it was time for drastic action. She called a meeting with all her former students in the city, doctors, lawyers, teachers, business owners. 40 years of teaching had built a powerful network. "This girl needs our help," Dorothy explained. "Richard Mitchell thinks money can buy anything, but he forgets there's something stronger: solidarity." The response was overwhelming. Dr. Jennifer offered free therapy. Dr. Matthew assembled a pro bono legal team. Local businesses refused to work with Mitchell Construction. The social pressure began to hit Richard where it hurt the most: his wallet. But the businessman was stubborn. One Saturday morning, taking advantage of Dorothy being out shopping, he went to the building. By bribing the new doorman, he got the spare key. Ashley was alone in the apartment, studying for her college entrance exams, another dream she had begun to chase. Buddy was the first to sense the danger, growling at the door before it even opened. When Richard entered, Ashley froze. "Enough of this nonsense. You're coming with me now." "No." She stepped back, but he moved forward. Buddy didn't hesitate. The mutt, who had never bitten anyone in his life, jumped in front of Ashley, baring his teeth with a threatening growl. "Get out of the way, you filthy mutt!" Richard tried to kick Buddy, but the dog dodged and lunged, biting the man's leg hard. Richard screamed, trying to shake the dog off. Ashley seized the distraction to run to the door and shout for help. Neighbors quickly appeared. Frank, the baker, was the first to arrive, holding Richard back while someone called the police. Dorothy arrived in the middle of the chaos, finding Ashley hugging Buddy, both trembling. "That damn dog attacked me. I'll have him put down," Richard yelled as the officers led him away. "Buddy was protecting Ashley from a home invasion," Dorothy shot back. "You're the one who'll answer for this." The break-in was the last straw. With evidence, witnesses, and a history of harassment, the judge had no choice but to order Richard's arrest. But even from jail, he kept trying to control the situation through his lawyers and employees. Ashley began receiving veiled threats. Mitchell Construction employees followed her. Her photo appeared on defamatory websites, painting her as an ungrateful daughter who had ruined her father's life. "Maybe I should move away," Ashley said one night, stroking Buddy, who never left her side. "Running isn't the answer," Dorothy advised. "You have the right to live your life wherever you want." The neighborhood community mobilized even more. They set up an informal protection system. Someone always kept an eye on Ashley, walking her to work, keeping her company in her free time. Margaret, Dorothy's neighbor, an 80-year-old black woman with a strong personality, became especially protective. "That man doesn't know who he's messing with. We women of Westwood look out for each other," she said, organizing the neighborhood ladies into a watch network. But Richard had resources. He hired private investigators to dig up dirt on Dorothy and discredit her. When they found nothing, they started making things up. Rumors spread that Dorothy ran a brothel, that Ashley was just one of many girls. The slander cut Dorothy deeply. 40 years of a spotless reputation destroyed by lies. Some parents began to doubt, questioning whether Dorothy had truly been the exemplary teacher they knew. Ashley saw the pain of the woman who had taken her in, and guilt consumed her. "That's enough, Dorothy. I'll turn myself in. It's not worth it." It was Buddy who, in a way, stopped her. Sensing the tension, the dog brought his only toy, a worn-out old ball, and dropped it at Ashley's feet, wagging his tail. His way of saying, "Don't give up." Dorothy straightened up. "You know what we're going to do? We're suing him for slander and defamation. Two can play that game." The legal battle intensified. Hearings, testimonies, expert examinations. Ashley had to relive every moment of control and abuse. Each retelling reopened old wounds, but she persisted, with Dorothy and Buddy always by her side. During one of the hardest hearings, where Ashley recounted being locked in her room for 3 days, Richard lost control. "I did everything for her, gave her everything. How dare she treat me like this?" he shouted, being restrained by the police. His outburst was his downfall. The mask of the concerned father fell away, revealing the obsessive controller he truly was. The judge saw clearly what Ashley had endured, but legal victories don't erase trauma. Ashley had panic attacks, waking up screaming at night. Buddy developed a sixth sense for her moments of crisis, lying on her chest to calm her with his weight and warmth. Dorothy researched and found a support group for victims of domestic abuse. Ashley resisted at first. "I don't want strangers knowing about my life." "Honey, sometimes strangers who've been through the same thing can help more than we imagine." With Buddy hidden in a bag, the community center didn't allow animals, but Dorothy turned a blind eye. Ashley went to the first meeting. Hearing other stories, realizing she wasn't alone, was liberating. There she met Brandon, a 25-year-old man who had fled an equally controlling father years earlier. The connection was immediate, not romantic, but one of mutual understanding. "It gets easier," Brandon assured her. "It doesn't go away completely, but it gets easier to carry." Ashley began to feel hope. She kept working, studying for her college entrance exams, going to therapy. Dorothy watched her blossom little by little, like a plant finally getting sunlight after years in the shade. But Richard didn't give up. Even convicted with a restraining order, he kept orchestrating attacks. He found out about Brandon and spread rumors that Ashley was prostituting herself, that the young man was her pimp. Brandon, who had fought hard for his own peace, found himself dragged into the storm. His job was threatened. His family started getting calls. "I'm so sorry," Ashley cried. "Everyone who gets close to me suffers." "Hey," Brandon held her hands. "We survivors have to stick together. He won't win." The situation reached a breaking point when Mitchell Construction started having financial troubles. Dorothy's contacts had worked. Many business owners refused to work with Richard. Desperate, he blamed Ashley for everything. On a rainy morning, Ashley got a call. Richard had been released on bail and wanted to negotiate. "Don't go," Dorothy begged. "I need to face this, Dorothy. With you all protecting me, of course." The meeting was set at a public cafe with Dorothy, Brandon, Buddy, and Dr. Matthew present. Richard showed up looking aged, worn down, but still with that hard stare. "You ruined my life," and he accused Ashley. "No, Dad, you ruined mine first. I just wanted to live." "Live? You call this living? Depending on the charity of strangers?" "I call it freedom. Something you never gave me." Richard slammed the table, startling other customers. Buddy growled protectively. "You're coming home even if it's the last thing I do." "Why?" Ashley asked, tears in her eyes. "Why can't you just let me be happy?" "Because you're my daughter, my responsibility. What will people say about me?" And there it was. It wasn't love. It was control. It wasn't protection. It was possession. Ashley realized she'd never have the father she deserved, only the one she had. "I forgive you, Dad, but I'm not coming back, never." Richard stood up furious, but Dr. Matthew reminded him of the legal consequences of any action. The businessman stormed out, stomping his feet, vowing this wasn't over. In the months that followed, the pressure continued, but something had changed in Ashley. The meeting had freed her in a way. She no longer expected her father to change. She'd accepted reality. She passed her college entrance exams for psychology. She wanted to help others like her. Dorothy cried with pride. Buddy barked with joy. The whole community celebrated. The girl from the dumpster had won, but Richard had one last card to play. He discovered Dorothy had a minor irregularity in her apartment paperwork, a bureaucratic error from decades ago. He used his connections to threaten eviction. "He never gets tired," Ashley vented, hugging Buddy. "Oh, he does," Dorothy smiled, "but we're tougher." The alumni network sprang into action again. Real estate lawyers quickly resolved the issue. Richard had spent a fortune for nothing. His obsession was destroying him. Mitchell Construction filed for bankruptcy. His so-called friends vanished along with the money. Alone, consumed by hatred, Richard wasted away. Ashley heard about it through others. Part of her wanted to help. After all, he was her father. But Dorothy and her support network reminded her, helping didn't mean sacrificing herself. "You can have compassion from a distance," Dr. Jennifer advised. "Forgiving doesn't mean going back." Ashley sent her father a letter through his lawyer. She said she forgave him, wished him peace, but that they each had to walk their own path. Richard never replied. Years passed. Ashley graduated, opening a practice specializing in victims of family abuse. Dorothy, older but still strong, was always by her side. Buddy, now an old dog, still stood guard. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the world to us, just starting out. Now, back to the story. One day, Ashley got a call. Richard was in the hospital, gravely ill, alone. Despite everything, she went to see him, Brandon and Dorothy beside her, Buddy waiting in the car. The man in the bed was a shadow of the powerful businessman. When he saw Ashley, his eyes filled with tears. "Forgive me," was all he could say. Ashley held his hand. She didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But she stayed, present, showing that despite everything, she'd become a compassionate woman. Richard passed days later. Ashley arranged a simple but dignified funeral. She discovered he'd recently changed his will, leaving what little remained to organizations helping domestic violence victims. Maybe in the end he understood, Ashley reflected, placing flowers on his grave. Or maybe it was just another attempt at control, Brandon said gently. It doesn't matter. What matters is who you became in spite of him. Back at Dorothy's apartment, Ashley hugged the woman who'd been more of a mother than anyone. Thank you. For everything. Thank you, dear, for showing me it's never too late to make a difference. Buddy, now an old dog, wagged his tail, completing the circle of love they'd built. Years later, Ashley married a kind man who respected her story and independence. Dorothy was her matron of honor. Buddy carried the rings. The whole community attended. In her speech, Ashley shared her story. The girl who hid in a dumpster, saved by a mutt and a retired teacher, and rebuilt her life. No one should go through what I did. But if you do, know this. There's a way out. There's hope. There are good people waiting to help. Sometimes they show up as a dog barking insistently on some random morning. Buddy, now very old, barked as if in agreement, drawing laughter and tears from the crowd. Dorothy moved, reflected on how one act of kindness can change lives. If she hadn't gone downstairs that morning, if she hadn't heard Buddy's barks, where would Ashley be? Ashley's practice thrived. She never charged those who couldn't pay, keeping the cycle of generosity alive. She started an animal-assisted therapy program, trained dogs comforting victims, inspired by Buddy. The caramel mutt lived to 16, surrounded by love. When he passed, Ashley and Dorothy wept together, grateful for every moment with their four-legged angel. At the makeshift wake they held in the building's backyard, dozens came to pay their respects. Everyone had a story about how Buddy had helped in some way, finding lost things, warning about dangers, or simply offering comfort. He saved my life, Ashley said simply, in every possible way. They buried Buddy in the building's garden with a small plaque. Here rests Buddy, the hero who saved a life with his barks. Dorothy, now over 80 years old, remained active. Ashley's story had spread, and she received calls from parents asking for advice about children in similar situations. The key is to listen, she always said. Truly listen without judgment. Ashley named her first son Ethan in honor of Buddy. The boy grew up hearing the story of the heroic dog and his great-grandmother Dorothy, because that's how he thought of the old teacher. One morning, decades after that first bark, Ashley returned to Maple Street. The green dumpster had long since disappeared, replaced by modern containers, but she could still see it all clearly. Buddy barking, the dangling hand, the beginning of everything. A young woman hurried past her, eyes red from crying. Ashley recognized her, that look of despair, of someone who saw no way out. She approached gently. "Hi, are you okay? Do you need help?" The girl hesitated, then broke into tears. Ashley hugged her right there on the sidewalk, just as Dorothy had done with her so many years before. "Come with me. Let's get some coffee and talk. There's always a way out, believe me." As they walked, Ashley smiled at the sky. Somewhere, Buddy was wagging his tail, satisfied. The cycle continued. Love creating love, salvation creating salvation. In Ashley's office, now expanded with a team of professionals, Buddy's photo held a place of honor at the reception. Below it, a plaque read, "In memory of Buddy, who taught us that the greatest heroes sometimes have 4 legs and bark." Dorothy, even in her advanced age, visited weekly. She loved playing with the therapy dogs, always looking for one that reminded her of Buddy. Ashley watched her fondly, grateful to still have her around. "You know," Dorothy said one day, "sometimes I think Buddy was sent by your mother to make sure you found your way." Ashley smiled, tears in her eyes. She liked to think so too, that somehow the universe had conspired, a stray dog, a retired teacher, and a green dumpster, to save her. The legacy lived on. Inspired by the story, residents created the Buddy Project, a support network for vulnerable youth. It started small in the neighborhood but grew, always with Dorothy's philosophy: listen without judging, help without conditions. Ashley spoke at schools telling her story. She always ended with the same message: if you're stuck in a metaphorical dumpster, know this: someone will bark for you. Someone will reach out. Don't give up. And if you see someone in need, be the bark. Be the helping hand. At one of these talks, a girl raised her hand. But what if no one comes? Ashley thought of Buddy, of Dorothy, of everyone who had helped her. Someone always comes. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it comes from where you least expect it. But they come. And while you wait, be strong. For yourself. The girl nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Ashley recognized that glimmer. It was the same one she had felt when Buddy stopped barking and licked her, wordlessly telling her she was safe. Years turned into decades. Dorothy passed away at 95, lucid until the end, surrounded by hundreds of former students and their families. Ashley held her hand until the very last moment. "Thank you for hearing the barks," were Ashley's last words to her. "Thank you for being strong enough to be saved," Dorothy whispered in reply. At the funeral, Ashley learned something Dorothy had never told her. The teacher had also escaped an abusive marriage when she was young. Someone had helped her, and she spent her life paying it forward. "That's why she understood," Ashley murmured to Brandon. "She knew exactly how I felt." Dorothy's apartment was turned into a temporary shelter for women in similar situations. Ashley ran it, making sure the teacher's welcoming spirit lived on. At the opening, they placed 2 plaques, one for Dorothy. Here lived Dorothy Wilson, who turned education into salvation, and another for Buddy, in memory of Buddy, the dog who started a chain of kindness with his barks. Ashley, now an older woman, continued her work. She had helped hundreds, maybe thousands. Each story was unique, but the pattern repeated. Someone trapped in a metaphorical dumpster, needing persistent barks to be noticed. Her son Ethan became a veterinarian, specializing in animal therapy. Ashley's grandchildren grew up hearing about Buddy and Dorothy, learning that small acts of kindness could change the world. On a quiet afternoon, Ashley visited Richard's grave again. She didn't go often, but sometimes she felt the need. She placed flowers, as always. "I forgive you, Dad. Completely now. I hope you found the peace you never had in life." A butterfly landed on the flowers. Ashley smiled. She liked to think it was a sign, from Richard, from her mother, from Dorothy, from Buddy, that everything had happened as it should. Back at the office, she found a new patient waiting, young, scared, with that look Ashley knew so well. "Welcome," Ashley said gently. "You've taken the hardest step by coming here. Now we'll work together." The girl began to cry. Ashley offered a tissue, remembering Dorothy doing the same decades ago. "My father. He won't let me live." "I understand," Ashley said, and the girl knew it was true. "We'll find a way out. There's always a way out." Outside, a stray dog barked. Ashley smiled. The signs were everywhere, for those who knew how to see. Buddy had taught her that. Sometimes saving someone is as simple as making enough noise to get their attention. The work continued. The Buddy Project had become a nationally recognized non-profit. Ashley refused all awards and honors, preferring the focus to stay on the work, not her. Dorothy didn't do it for recognition, she always said. She did it because it was right. At 70, Ashley still counseled, still spoke, still reached out. Her hair had turned white, her hands wrinkled, but her eyes held the same determination as the young woman who had climbed out of the dumpster. Brandon, now her husband of decades, supported her in everything. They had built a beautiful life together, rooted in mutual understanding and respect. Both knew the value of freedom. Both had fought for it. One special evening, the neighborhood threw a surprise tribute for Ashley. The community hall was packed, former patients, families they'd helped, project volunteers. "You don't understand," Ashley said, moved. "I'm the one who should thank you. Each of you taught me something. You made me who I am." Old photos flashed across the screen. Buddy appeared, young and healthy, beside a teenage Ashley. Dorothy came next, smiling in her classroom. Tears streamed down many faces. "This woman," said Margaret, now a centenarian but still sharp, "saved not just lives but souls. She taught us kindness is priceless and that chains are broken with love, not force." Ashley hugged her old friend, remembering how she'd rallied the neighborhood women to protect her. Community. That was the word. Dorothy had built a community of care, and it endured. The celebration lasted late into the night. Stories were shared, tears and laughter mingled. Ashley realized this was her true legacy. Not the diplomas on the wall, not the published articles, but the lives woven together by kindness. On her way back home, she passed by Maple Street again. A new stray dog was sleeping on the sidewalk. Ashley stopped to watch. The animal woke up, looked at her, and wagged its tail. "Hi, Buddy," she whispered. "Thanks for watching over the neighborhood." The dog approached, sniffed her hand, and lay back down. Ashley walked on, smiling. There would always be watchful dogs, always people willing to hear persistent barks. At home before bed, Ashley wrote in her journal, a habit she'd kept since leaving the dumpster. "Today, I turn 70. I look back and see not a straight line, but a web, each thread connected to another, forming something bigger. Buddy barked and changed my fate. Dorothy listened and changed my life. I try to do the same, to be the bark, to be the listening ear. That's how the world changes, not with grand gestures, but with small kindnesses that multiply. Tomorrow I have an early appointment, someone else needing to leave their dumpster. I'll be there, just as Dorothy was for me. As we always will be, we survivors who chose to turn pain into purpose. Buddy would be proud." She closed the journal and turned off the light. Outside, dogs barked in the distance. Ashley smiled in the dark. Somewhere, someone was being saved. Life went on. Dumpsters kept appearing, metaphorical or real, but so did the Buddies, the Dorothys, the Ashleys. An unbreakable chain of compassion, started by a dog who refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. The next morning, Ashley woke to the phone ringing. An emergency. A young woman had been found hiding in an abandoned construction site, refusing to leave or speak to anyone. "I'm on my way," Ashley said, already getting dressed. At the scene, she found the familiar sight. Police officers, social workers, all trying to convince the girl. Ashley approached slowly. "Hi, my name is Ashley. Many years ago, I hid in a dumpster. I know how you feel." The girl looked up, surprised. Ashley saw the same terror, the same hopelessness she'd once felt. She held out her hand. "You don't have to trust me now, but know that I understand. And when you're ready, I'll be here." Hours passed. Ashley waited patiently, sharing her story in pieces, about Buddy, about Dorothy, about how life can change. Finally, the girl took her hand. Another rescue. Another life with a chance to start over. Ashley guided the young woman to her car, remembering every step of her own journey. At the office, while the girl showered and ate, Ashley called her team. Psychologists, lawyers, the entire network built over the years sprang into action. "What's her name?" the receptionist asked. Ashley glanced out the window, watching a stray dog pass by. "She hasn't said yet. But it doesn't matter. What matters is she's safe now." The story repeated, yet each time was unique. Every person saved became a potential savior. The math of kindness, multiplication, not addition. Years later, that girl would become a psychologist too, specializing in trauma. The cycle continued, the chain growing stronger. At her graduation, she thanked Ashley. "You showed me that dumpsters aren't endings. They're beginnings in disguise. Thank you for hearing my silent screams." Ashley, older now, but with her spirit unbroken, hugged the young woman. She thought of Dorothy, how proud she'd be. She thought of Buddy, how his bark still echoed through time. The sun set over Westwood. On the streets, life carried on, people with their pains, their struggles, their personal dumpsters, but also with their chances for rescue, their Buddies ready to bark, their Dorothys ready to reach out. Ashley walked home slowly, taking in every detail of the neighborhood that had become her world. There was Mr. George's bakery, now run by his son, the corner where Buddy once stood guard, the building where it all began. At home, she flipped through the Buddy Project photo album. Hundreds of smiling faces, each with a story of triumph. At the center, the original photo, her younger self, Buddy and Dorothy, taken weeks after the rescue. "We did it, didn't we?" she said to the photo. "We turned barks into a symphony." The phone rang again. Another case, another emergency. Ashley sighed, smiled, and answered. As long as there were dumpsters, there would be barks. As long as there was darkness, there would be outstretched hands. That was how the world changed. One bark, one rescue, one life at a time. Buddy had taught the most important lesson. Never ignore a cry for help, no matter how unlikely the messenger might seem. Night fell over the city. Somewhere, someone was crying in secret. Somewhere, someone was searching for help. And somewhere, always someone was ready to be the bark that saves, the hand that rescues, the love that transforms. Ashley closed her eyes, grateful. Tomorrow would bring more work, more lives to touch. But today, in this moment, she could rest knowing the chain continued, strong and unbreakable. Outside, a dog barked. Ashley smiled. Buddy had never truly left. He lived in every warning bark, in every act of courage, in every refusal to ignore another's suffering. The green dumpster had vanished decades ago, but its legacy remained eternal, proof that the darkest places can hide the greatest opportunities for light if someone cares enough to look. End of story. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of Ashley's journey? Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that changed lives? Share your thoughts in the comments about the courage of Ashley and Dorothy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining us.